Hey good people, happy Wednesday and welcome back to the channel. It's that time again. In a few moments, I'll be sharing my thoughts and feelings on episode 10 of Married at First Sight San Diego. And over the course of this review, as usual, I'll be giving you my episode breakdown, followed by my thoughts on each couple in the episode, and I will also end the review with an overall rating. So without any further delay, let's jump right in. Now episode 10 was quite the doozy. Some of the cast members spend their time talking to friends and family members about the issues they have for their spouse. Some of the cast members celebrate their 1-month anniversary. There's a spicy group dinner scene towards the end of the episode, and there's plenty of drama to go around. So if you haven't seen this episode yet, and I had to recommend whether you should check it out or avoid it, I would recommend that you check it out while having the remote in your hand to fast forward during the scenes of filler. I think that there are some life lessons that could be learned and applied to a number of relationships and marriages out there from this episode. So this episode wasn't a complete wash. But with that being said, let's move on to the couples. First, we gotta get Morgan and Binh out the way. We learned that when Morgan initially confronted Binh at last week's episode, she told Binh that Alexis told her everything. Then she left the apartment before she could give Binh any explanation on what she meant. So at this point, Binh is essentially left with three options. He can chase after Morgan, which wouldn't be a good idea because she's running away. Binh could reach out to one of the experts, which wouldn't be the best idea because Morgan has already lied to Pastor Cal when asked if she had forgiven Binh on what happened during the honeymoon. Or Binh could talk to Justin and Alexis directly and find out why information that he shared in confidence with Justin somehow made its way back to Morgan. And Binh decides on option 3 because it makes the most sense. Now when Binh is able to confront Justin and Alexis, we learn that Justin had his phone on speakerphone when having these side conversations with Binh. Alexis then overheard the conversations, then she felt it was her duty to alert Morgan about the conversations because she felt that Binh confiding in Justin about his marital issues was wrong. Now here's what I think about it. I think Alexis is clearly an agent of chaos. She's so used to wrecking her own relationships that she's now graduated to moving on to wrecking somebody else's relationship. Alexis chides Justin for being so close to Binh while only knowing him for a brief period of time, but Alexis seemingly has a close relationship with Morgan, at least close enough to tell her everything that Binh is supposedly saying about her, while maintaining complete confidentiality whenever Morgan has something to say about Binh. Alexis and Morgan are alike, in that they're both looking for a way out of their marriage. Where they differ is that Morgan has no problem being the villain in her marriage, whereas Alexis wants to come off as the good guy. But as Binh is trying to get answers from Justin and Alexis calls Morgan to tell her that Binh is over their apartment, and this angers Morgan again. But at this point, it really makes no sense for Binh and Morgan to stay together. However, there's more. When Morgan finally agrees to meet with Binh on their 1-month anniversary, Binh greets Morgan with some flowers, and Morgan marches towards Binh like she's Sophia from The Color Purple. She takes the flowers and drops them on the ground in a very disrespectful manner. Morgan had all the smoke for Binh, and it gets to a point where she only wants to be heard, and she cuts him off every time he tries to speak. The scene was uncomfortable to watch, and you would think that Binh slept with Morgan's best friend given her reaction to all this. What I find hypocritical about Morgan is that she doesn't want Binh to talk to anybody else about their marriage, but it's been confirmed that Morgan has spoke to multiple people about her issues with Binh. And keep in mind, this has been done behind Binh's back. Morgan has these trust issues, but she doesn't hold herself to the same standard, and for that reason, there's no reason for these two to continue being together. Next, there's Krysten and Mitch. There really isn't much worth talking about for them this episode. In the beginning of the episode, Krysten meets with a friend to talk about last week's conflict with Mitch, but the couple decides to go to some resort in the middle of nowhere for their 1-month anniversary. They do some yoga, and it's pretty boring. They also receive their wedding photos and reflect on their journey towards this point. Later on at the group dinner, Mitch puts himself down about his progress on the show, and Krysten lets him know about her frustration, and she lets everybody know that the only reason why their marriage is working is because she's the one compromising all the time. And I gotta agree with Krysten on this. Krysten has needs, and Krysten has hands down been the best wife on the season thus far. On a side note, if I were a betting man, I would say that there are a number of guys from past seasons who would have loved to have been matched with Krysten during their season. And if Krysten had matched with any of these guys, then they would have remained married well past decision day. But next, there's Stacia and Nate. And in my opinion, the scene with Stacia and her mother is extremely important. I view Stacia's mother as someone who consistently tried to give Stacia great advice and keep her on the right track. In their scene together, Stacia talks about her issues with Nate and how he hasn't told her that he loves her yet. Stacia concedes that she hasn't really given Nate much time to get on her program. But the mother responds by telling Stacia that she is known for constantly picking the proverbial scab, instead of leaving the scab alone and letting things heal. In other words, the mother knows that Stacia likes to constantly focus on minor issues, instead of letting things happen organically. And to me, this is the perfect explanation for Stacia's issues with Nate. In my opinion, Stacia feels that her assets, money, and drive are things that will convince Nate to love her, whereas Nate was very direct in telling Stacia what he needed from her. Stacia knows what she needs to do to make the marriage work, but it seems like she's not willing to give any ground on being submissive in the biblical sense to Nate. But Stacia's mother also shares that she blames herself for Stacia's issues, because she exposed Stacia to her own toxic relationship, and this could possibly explain why Stacia is in therapy. It seems like she's aware of her own issues whenever she's not around Nate, but whenever Nate is around, she comes off as the perfect one while dinging Nate on all his perceived flaws. But later on in the episode, Stacia meets with Krysten to volunteer as a dog sitter while Krysten and Mitch celebrate their 1-month anniversary. Stacia seems a bit overwhelmed by the maintenance that comes with taking care of a dog, but to Nate's point, Stacia is adamant about having a baby ASAP, and babies definitely require more maintenance than adult dogs. But during this episode, Stacia and Nate finally go to the lawyer's office to sign that post-nup. And while I understand where Stacia is coming from when it comes to business, Stacia also fails to practice what she preaches when it comes to the concept of trust. Stacia told her mother earlier on that trust is earned and not given. Yet when she deals with Nate, she wants Nate to earn her trust, while expecting Nate to automatically assume that she's trustworthy. But through the power of editing in this episode, there's a huge shift in energy towards the middle. When Nate and Stacia meet to celebrate their 1-month anniversary, Nate tells Stacia that he's fallen in love with her, and she becomes overwhelmed with joy. They even go to a tattoo shop to get matching tattoos on their hands. So I think it's safe to say that brother Nate has officially given Stacia that good old pickle tickle. Next up, there's Alexis and Justin. In the beginning of the episode, Justin meets up with his brother to briefly talk about his experience being married to Alexis. The show doesn't spend much time showing their interaction, but then we see Alexis meeting up with her friend to talk about her issues with Justin. Later on in the episode, Justin and Alexis are working on a scrapbook for their wedding pictures, and Justin takes the time to acknowledge the mistakes that he's made in their marriage. Justin also feels that he may not have enough time to fix those mistakes by the end of the process. Alexis then tries to give Justin some words of encouragement, but in her production interview, she shares that if she wasn't married to Justin, she would have left a long time ago. Now, for the past several episodes, the main issues that Justin and Alexis have are centered around communication. Either Justin is not sharing enough information with Alexis, or Alexis is not telling Justin how she truly feels. And it seems like things reach a boiling point for this episode. During the group dinner, all the couples are sharing something positive in their experience being on the show. But when it comes to Alexis sharing her experience, she wants to pass, and this bothers Justin. Now, I think that Justin is being passive-aggressive with this, because in my opinion, Alexis had plenty to say to Morgan when it came to what Binh was doing. So in Justin's mind, Alexis should have plenty to say now. Alexis then decides to publicly blast Justin yet again, and it ends with the two of them walking their separate ways. Now, it's painfully clear that Justin has significant issues, and they're centered around him showing his emotions and expressing himself. But Alexis has her own issues as well, and the other couples have come to the conclusion that both Justin and Alexis both had valid points that they tried to make. I think it's safe to say that these two have no business being together. And finally, let's talk Lindy and Miguel. There literally isn't much to talk about for them for this episode. They spend their 1-month anniversary on a boat ride, and they spend the majority of their time on this episode only saying positive things about their experience. But overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate this episode a solid 4. While the episode was filled with plenty of drama, it was also great at highlighting the issues that these cast members are having, and it also did a great job at showing all the couples out there that their relationship isn't nearly as bad as the couples on this show. But this marks the end of my review. If you have any questions or comments about the review or the episode, feel free to leave them below in the comment section, and I'll be sure to reply to everybody. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.